Otherwise, I can do them spontaneously. It doesn't matter. Okay. And you're going to ask these questions kind of like sequentially. Yeah, I'm ready. No worries. My name is Dante Horton, and I am a uh, professional Pokemon player, and um, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been playing professional Pokemon for about 5 years, starting with attending regional championships out in Dallas, Texas, and then moving here, competing at the HyperX Esports Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then last year, recently making a day two cut and winning a couple of limitless tournaments, which are kind of like a semi-pro circuit adjacent to the professional Pokemon circuit. I'm also involved with several community Pokemon teams, such as USPA, which is a United States Pokemon Association League run by several high notoriety esports players in the Pokemon sphere. And shoot, I guess I'm just happy to be here and talk about esports player psychology. It's a really fun emerging field of research, so thanks for having me. Yeah, sure. So Pokemon runs an official organized circuit akin to if you were in Overwatch League, or if you've heard of Overwatch League, for example, it would be something like that. But instead of franchise teams, it's accessible to players. So instead of having to be a part of a gigantic conglomerate to compete, you can just sign up as an individual and then you compete in a Swiss tournament bracket. Now, What this means is that each player, it's not a double elimination structure. Each player actually plays, I believe it's 8 or 9 rounds, and you have to achieve a certain record similar to chess throughout the day to make it to day 2. And the Play Pokemon circuit has the Pokemon Video Game Championships, which is, if you've ever played Pokemon, a standard double battles format
I
where.
might have to cut you out.
Oh, okay.
Something just happened to my stream, like they weren't hearing the audio, so we might have to
Oh,
just
what?
redo it again. Is that fine with
That's
you?
fun. Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, we're just gonna start from the beginning. I didn't realize they couldn't hear it, so
Okay,
um,
no problem.
it should be. I'm just gonna check now if it's just working. Get bear with me 1 second. I thought it'd be fine.
It's okay.
Okay, they can hear. Okay, so
Hello, hello.
oh, they
Okay,
can hear
cool.
you. Yeah. So I'm gonna just redo that all over again. Sorry about that.
No
Um,
problem.
yeah. So this little stream today is to talk about mental health and esports and to talk about you, which is your name's Horton Hurd, right? I'm assuming.
Yep, Horton
Yeah.
Herd. Yep.
You're a Pokemon esports player, and you're going to discuss about your work and how it's been. So, could you introduce yourself to the viewers who may not know you, and where are you from?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, I am Horton Herd. My name's Dante Horton, and I am from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a professional Pokemon player. I'm deeply involved in the play Pokemon architecture. So, not only am I a player, I'm connected to multiple regional winners, along with the Pokemon professors, who are, it's like a sanctioned uh, judge kind of thing built into the Pokemon Company International's competitive circuit. I've won a couple of tournaments on grassroots, and I've made day 2 at a couple of other regional events, along with being one of the leaders of our local circuit here in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the local community shops and also with the HyperX Esports Arena. And I've been playing Pokemon since about 2019.
Amazing. So, you said about you've been doing Pokemon esports. And how would you explain to someone who doesn't know Pokemon esports about it? I know you said it's similar to Overwatch esports. So yeah,
Yeah.
how
So
would you
yeah.
explain it the best?
hmm Unlike the franchised, organized leagues in Overwatch, where they're $1 million teams, one thing that's great about the Play Pokemon esports circuit is that it's accessible to players. So players will pay a fee and they'll compete in a Swiss format. That means that it's not double elimination, which, speaking to player psychology, is really nice because, especially when they're involving youth, sometimes double elim can be a bad opener for players because they'll get eliminated immediately if they're not highly skilled, which is
Yeah.
upsetting to them. But Swiss format ensures that they get a full day of play. So you're going to play 8 rounds of either Pokemon VGC, which is similar to the video games if you've ever played Double Battles.
So if someone who
Pokemon.
doesn't know VGC at all, like they've never heard of it, how would you say to them? What would you explain to them about it? They know the concept of Pokemon.
Oh, okay, okay, sure. Um, it's a it's a zero sum game where each person is going to bring 6 Pokemon to a battle, and then you each choose 4 of your 6 Pokemon, and then you battle like traditional Pokemon battles. If anyone's ever played
Yeah.
Pokemon, you pick the moves. Yep. Uh, and by the way, these are highly elite Pokemon players. I mean, I'm not joking when I tell you these are some of the most talented people I've ever seen in my life. It's so high skill. It's like chess and I think that analogy kind of shows up all over esports when people want to talk about their correlative esport. But really, in this instance, it is genuinely like chess because
Yeah. Because
you
you have
pick
to
a
be like
lead.
mentally prepared for it. You have to, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
know strategies and the cards you're picking to do
Yep,
other moves.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 And the first one to eliminate 4 in a best of three set with open sheets. That means that you can actually see your opponent's moves, which is a fun little twist. It adds a layer of psychological complexity because it's like, oh, if this person has a fire Pokemon, well, then I should probably ring this one, and so on and so forth. It's a blast. It's a blast. I mean, the community's amazing.
That's amazing. That sounds really nice to hear, actually. So since you did explain it where everything happens, do you want to know, tell us what organization you're from and what team you play for?
Oh, sure, yeah. So in the VGC scene, a lot of players have aggregate communities that are based upon their area, either globally or regionally. So
Have you played for regionally and locally and internationally, or have you just only played, like, I guess, within the area you are at?
no, no, I've definitely played regionally, and my peers have showed up at the North American International Championships, which is international, and then Worlds. And nationally, there are grassroots leagues called the USPA and the NPAA, also the NPA, which is like the most elite. And I've played in USPA and NPAA for the Las Vegas Meowscarators, which is a local team that uh, we kind of move in and do our thing at the regional events, move as a group, move as a conglomerate,
Yeah.
and NPAA as a professional, semi-professional esports team to battle nationally
Okay.
on the Ekritique Rainbows. I apologize. That's the team. Shout out Ekritique Rainbows. They actually won this last season.
Oh, that's really good. So I know how you explained how you've been to all these, competitions. You played competitively, regionally. I'm assuming also you said not internationally, right? Or did we
I
do
no, I have well, I've competed internationally, globally from here, but I've not traveled internationally to
no
an
traveling,
event
but you've
just yet.
played
Yeah.
internationally. But you've played so
Oh
many
yeah.
competitive like matches. How did it all start? Like, how did you get into Pokemon esports in the first place, and where was the inspiration coming from?
Great question. Back in the day, I think everyone had their own game of choice, right? And Pokemon was just a place for me to kind of escape from the day to day grind. And I'm a highly competitive person. So I would play on the ranked ladders, built in ranked ladders. And it hit a point where I was like, this is something that I could see myself maybe being really good at.
Yeah.
Um, and I came across the organized play, the esports circuit, the professional play circuit, and went ahead and just kind of took a leap with the community and signed up for an event in Dallas, Texas. And I did okay at my first event. I've done a lot better since then. Um, and we've built the local esports Pokemon community in Las Vegas from. We actually ran a grassroots event that only had, I want to say, 4 players to now a rotating community of 20 plus.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. So beautiful because it brings so many people together. And I think in a similar vein, all of the players in our community look at it as just something competitive. They get a little bit of a psychological need out there, but then also the community aspect, the mental health aspect, the hey, I want to do something on a Saturday that feeds back into something bigger and play esports. It's truly remarkable. I mean, it got me into the industry completely.
So it's been a big growth since from the start up to now to the end of what you're doing now, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, locally, and then the actual circuit itself is growing exponentially. I think I want to say maybe the first event I went to only had a couple of hundred people in Dallas. And now the
Oh,
competitive esports circuit for Pokemon is in the thousands per event.
that's really a big difference, actually. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's more well known now for Pokemon esports.
Yep. Yeah, Wolfie
I
Glick, you
think
can
this is
thank
like
him.
the first time I found out about Pokemon esports because I hadn't known beforehand what it was. So
Hmm.
I'm also new to this. Um, have you ever faced any emotional or mental challenges while competing for competitions that you've played?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I have so much to say about that. Personally, I've faced emotional and mental challenges in prep, in just kind of taking yourself seriously. I kind of reiterate that these guys, when you go to an esports event, right,
Yes.
there's a big distinction between casual and competitive players. So I think whatever gets people's kinds of brains moving is going to be, there's a large variance in that. And for me personally, achieving high placements and dedicating time to create quote unquote solves for metagames is mentally exhausting when you're trying to live basically the rest of your life, and then on the side you've got this fun hyper competitive esports circuit where, by the way, I didn't mention this, but the winners of these events make a lot of money. So if you get, I think it's like top 16, you get over $1,000 per person, and up at the number one for like a regional event, I think you get like $16,000 or $8,000 or something. You get a lot of money. And it's difficult to kind of show up and deliver on that level. One thing that I think is kind of funny to see is anytime somebody comes to their first esports Pokemon event, because I reiterate that we have a local community of players who range from amateur, just trying to have fun, to highly competitive, trying to be the next number one player in the world. But the nerves at the beginning of a match are unreal. There have been times where I go to a regional event, and fortunately, I'm seasoned enough now to not have this happen to me. But you'll see players, I mean, shaking as they come into competition, or you can see their breath patterns are just completely disrupted because they're so anxious about actually playing at an event in an arena with tons of people, with the potentiality to go on stream, with the potentiality to make a bunch of money, so on and so forth. So, um, and I think that varies again between people. And when you consider that gaming communities also have folks with varying levels of social comfort. So some people are cool with being in a big, loud environment like that, and others who are really skilled at Pokemon might not be, right?
Exactly. Some people feel like they're in this new environment and they don't feel as if like there's a lot of things going on, and then they're also competing, and then there's a lot of stress building up to them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's quite tough, especially if it's your first time. It's a new experience, and you're either competing in a good level or you're always like kind of focusing on what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And, sometimes players will get in their own heads at these events. They've prepped for so long, they've spent long nights on Discord calls, on YouTube, researching, talking with their friends, preparing for this thing, and then they show up to the event and their emotions can get the best of them. And I think that becomes really frustrating to some players who would otherwise be great at decision making, but in this overstimulating environment are suddenly like, whoa, you know, I guess I have to lock in, kind of, to
Yeah.
use that term. Yeah.
Um, so you have said that you've felt some burnout during these competitions, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you, has it been especially when you've played with your teammates, or has it been like a long period of time where you just feel like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I just need a break from it.
Uh-huh. I guess I'll speak to the community here. I'll speak to myself individually, and then I'll speak to
Yeah.
the community because I'm sure they would be happy for me to speak on their behalf in this regard.
Yeah.
I think burnout is extremely common.
Yeah.
I'm in all esports, but particularly in the Pokemon esport because formal architecture for training is limited. So a lot of people spend time on a server called Pokemon Showdown. Maybe some of your viewers have played that before. It's
Mhm.
just a simulation platform that allows you to battle on a ladder and kind of get testing before you create your real Pokemon team and go to an event. And when I tell you that these Pokemon esports players, my peers and myself, are spending a long time on Showdown, I think that's an understatement. I mean, literally, I have friends who are professional Pokemon players and spend upwards of 7, 8 hours a day
Yeah.
on Pokemon Showdown.
Do you
Then
also
they go,
think like they feel as if, because it all comes from a hobby that you enjoy playing
yes,
Pokemon. Do you ever think, oh, well, they've gone into the esports side of it, and then they feel like, oh no, they don't really enjoy it anymore because they have to play it in a competitive side of it? They can't at least have fun. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have fun, but they always have to think they have to be at the best level of
hmm
their ability at that game. Do you think, oh, they're not really enjoying it anymore, or they just feel like gaming is not just for them anymore because of how they feel about the esports side of it?
yeah, it's a keen observation because I think that internally they do feel that way. It's very frequent that that happens. You'll see someone who is so passionate about Pokemon, so excited about playing this circuit, get involved and kind of commit in a real way to becoming an esports player, to becoming a competitive player in the circuit. And over the course of, a couple of months, maybe a year where they've been doing this, it goes from excitement to stress. I do see that, especially in my peers who are chasing their first good placement. They really want to make that day two. They really want to be on stream. And I see them get completely overwhelmed and burnt out and just dislike the game. I've had friends train for 11 months for events and then
Oh,
back out at
really?
the last moment just because they can't handle the exhaustion, the mental exhaustion. Maybe they don't feel up to par for delivery that weekend when the actual event shows up. That's very, very mentally exhausting, and burnout is extremely common in this particular esport.
I feel like it's very common in quite a lot of esports because even though like I guess you've got Pokemon esports, there's some I guess you've got Overwatch esports or Valorant esports where they physically feel like their teammates, they kind of be friends with them for a long time, but then they get kind of angry because if one's doing worse than each other, then it's just like you're blaming each other and then it's a lot of fighting. Do
Yeah,
you feel like the same thing kind of happens with your team as well, where you guys blame each other or you guys have arguments about oh who's doing better, who's doing this, and does that have like a negative impact to your mental health about that?
I would say so. I would say that it comes from a point of frustration. At some point in the series, everybody wants to be successful, right? And again, it gets more and more difficult the closer you get to the event. Everybody else is training as well, right? So it's like when you actually hit that event, it's super elite. And when frustrating things begin to happen, if friends take losses, you can definitely see them take that out. Not take that out, or maybe just it affects the people around them as well because it's like, wow, so and so is having a hard time at this tournament today. We got to try and support him, and you'll give them a little bit of help to try and kind of help push him in the right direction. Maybe for some matchups, maybe for a particular part of whatever their strategy is, and it turns into a bit of like, no, I got it, and well, I've trained for this for a while. Well, you wouldn't understand because this is. It's like, yeah, it can become overwhelming and frustrating in that way to communicate, especially when the pressures of competition are actively happening.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, I think even someone in the chat said how, um, let me just bring it up. They said how the Go Battle Leagues could be a good example of what might make you stressed, especially if you keep losing to tough Pokemon in the meta. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think it's very tough to
Yeah.
also have friends and your teammates, and then you guys end up doing badly or not as good as you expected, and then it becomes an argument, and then there you're not talking to each other, and it's just a lot of negative impact that happens.
Yeah, there can be a significant negative impact. And I would say as well that it is, I guess I would reiterate and just kind of bring to the front that it's a frustrating situation because everybody wants, as you said, at the core, like when you start playing, it's like, oh, let's have this fun thing. This is going to be fun the whole way through. And what it can lead to eventually is a lot of mental exhaustion, and it can
Yeah.
bring some of our players into a place where it's like, hey man, maybe you should take a week off. Let's take a
Yeah.
couple of days
Do
off
you
and
think do you
recenter.
think is there any a moment where you yourself and maybe your teammates have felt like that and they just really do not want to get into the game, then you've got like a competition and a couple of weeks later and you guys need to focus. Is there any been like a moment where you think, oh, I need something to motivate me? What would you think would help you to motivate yourself in particular, to get at that little phase of yours, just to just get rid of everything and just focus on something in your inner peace? What would motivate you to do that?
Yeah, the thing that would helps me kind of like focus and target the win is ironically, I take breaks. I take
Yeah.
breaks. I have to take breaks. Even if I grind for 5 or 6 days, I will call out a specific day to take a break. And I think that sometimes what you can do to stay motivated is recognize that your peers are struggling and
Mhm.
that maybe a win for you is a win for everybody. So, in some regard, if I've got teammates who are like, man, we're going to go to this event and I don't know what I'm going to bring, my team is not working maybe as well as it could be, it's grounding to have a community of friends where you can go, well, tell you what, I'll help you with what you've got going on and I'll focus on what I've going on or what I've got going on so that regardless of each person's individual performance, a win for one is a win for all. And I would say that that actually does help with the focus and the motivation significantly after we experience some frustrating team building moments or losses at events.
Yeah, I think I guess that really helps, especially when you guys are talking to each other and communicating about your feelings to one
Mm-hmm.
another. Um, so do you ever think your confidence has ever dropped down in like a significant level? I know you said you've taken breaks, but
Yep.
especially when you guys have like a bad performance in a competition, do you think your confidence has really dropped? And have you ever had like thoughts about, oh no, I just don't want to do Pokemon esports anymore. I don't want to do any competitions anymore. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's happened to me and it's happened to many of my peers where you'll have one or two or maybe a streak of kind of frustrating events that happen within a match, whether that's RNG based. There are a lot of RNG factors in Pokemon. Everybody's been confused in a Pokemon game and hit themselves in confusion. That happens at live events and it's extremely frustrating. Uh, you can end up in a situation where maybe you've prepped for this thing, you think there's going to be glory, and at the end of the tournament you don't make a placement and it's very easy to come into a headspace where it's like, you know what, I'm washed, I'm going to watch, I'm not playing this anymore, maybe I should be doing something else, what am I doing with my life, I
Yeah.
think is what happens to some people sometimes
And
is
you've also
like,
said it's not your Pokemon esports, it's not your main job, is it? It's you've also got things on the side as well. Do you think
oh
for
yeah.
someone who wants to also get into the esports industry or do anything related to esports, do you also think it's quite hard to just do that and focus on their main job as esports, especially the Pokemon esports? I know it's not as known as other esports out there, like Overwatch esports, where there will probably be a case where people can just drop it and focus only on esports. Has there,
Mhm.
do you know, with your own, because you do Pokemon esports, has it been a case of I can't just mainly focus on this, I do have to have other financial stabilities to just in life?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm getting the question that you're getting at, and I think I can give you the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah,
A lot of players who want to play Pokemon esports permanently have to rely on supplementary revenue streams. So not only do they need to focus and consistently win events, they usually also will kind of feed back into a content creation type loop. The
yeah,
number one player in the world, Wolf Glick, is a great example of this. He clearly plays full time Pokemon all day, every day. And you see a lot of amateur, semi pro, professional players kind of try to follow that loop explicitly.
mm-hmm.
And they're spending all week talking about Pokemon, making videos about Pokemon, making videos about meta games, posting on Reddits about meta games, competing in local tournaments. And they go to events, they try and win the money. They're basically creating like a content farm around Pokemon.
Yeah,
And
They're like
as
trying
you
so
said,
hard just to focus on the one thing that they enjoy,
yep.
especially the thing that they do, but then they also don't focus on other things, especially their mental health, their physical health, talking to others, not even just about Pokemon, just other
Yeah, their
things in
life.
general. Yeah, their life.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
um,
their freaking life. Yep.
but also like it takes control of your just in general in your mental toll because you're doing so many things to be okay, to be financially stable, to be, okay in life because you really enjoy it, but also it's just like there isn't many opportunities out there except for the competitions, and if you're not winning them, then it's just bringing you a lot down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. It becomes a what would you call that? Like a funnel, a siphon for focus, attention, energy. And that's kind of counterintuitive to what they want from esports, which is glory, fun, and competition, right?
Yes. How do you deal with the stress that comes from high level competitions?
How do I deal with the stress that comes from high level competitions? I'm gonna give you a blanket statement that I feel like kind of uh, can help maybe with somebody who doesn't understand esports understand some of the things that are happening
Yeah.
not only in Pokemon but in generalized esports. I've been around the scene. Pokemon's not the only one I've played, but
Yeah.
I have to chew gum at a competition.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example of how stress kind of shows up in the body, I mentioned earlier that you'll see players, I mean, quite literally shaking during these events. And by the way, that's not just at the regional events where they're on site. There are players who will get overwhelmed and stressed just playing tournaments from their computer. And what that comes with is a bunch of what would you call them, like soothing techniques. I see my friends kind of fall into their tics, if you will, while they play.
Mhm.
Maybe they lose focus, a lot of leg movement. Some people will,
Have you had it?
bite
I know
their
this
bite their
might
nails,
be
whatever.
because I know this isn't a bit of an illegal way, but have you ever noticed someone even taking medication or drugs just to have their performance boosted or to
Oh
just
yeah,
even be okay stress wise?
yeah,
Have you like
uh,
experienced that yourself in these competitions?
yeah. So I've always strayed away from that, but
Hmm.
I'm speaking to the industry here, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There are lots of players who use substances to manage their stress levels during tournaments. Now, whether that be cannabis on the West Coast in the United States, or maybe it's more pharmaceutical, folks with ADHD, et cetera, can find ways to get out of their thought loops, to get out of their head,
Hmm.
and kind of get their medical relief. And I think it does actually affect the way that they compete as well. It's something that nobody really talks about on the scene. I know it was a thing in Call of Duty, and in Pokemon, there's less reflex based movement. It's a little more logical, but I think that stress in that instance has almost even more of a significant effect because it affects your decision making. But yeah, you see substances on the scene for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it does take a very like a negative way of the esports because when you think about it, I feel like people think of esports as just people gaming competitively, but there's more to it. There's a lot of jobs out there. I know you even said that you run a charity organization, I believe, that focuses on other parts of esports where you're giving money to charity and especially to other companies out there who help with just esports in general to make it more noticeable. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's an interesting vertical to explore. I'll make it short. Work for a company called the Corporate Esports Association. We just ran a couple of tournaments this weekend, and the idea is companies play esports. So we have company teams actually play Valorant, they play Overwatch, they play so on and so forth. This season, it's been Marvel Rivals. If you've heard about the popularity of that game, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have heard of Marvel Rivals. It's very popular.
Yeah, super super popular. And the idea behind that product model is, you guys are at your day jobs, maybe you're whatever about your coworkers. Well, let's play esports to kind of give everybody a sense of belonging, give everybody a sense of fun, camaraderie, show your peers what your skills are that may not be apparent in the regular workplace. Like maybe somebody's really good at leadership, and you don't see that because they're coy or maybe they're not in a position like they want to be at work. They play an esport game with their team. They compete in this circuit for charity. It's all for charity. It's a complete nonprofit. We don't make any money.
Oh, okay.
And what you'll see is
Would you think that would
certain
be a hard
personalities
way
come to the front.
because there's a lot of people who get themselves involved, and especially knowing the fact they're not making any money out of it? Do you
Yeah,
think sometimes they're hesitant in even joining in because they know they're not making money? Or also, do you think that it kind of helps them to get these contacts and socialize with other people who are in the industry?
I think that's the beauty of philanthropy, right? In this instance, because there's a charity thing kind of charging everybody behind it, I never really see the frustration that I see in regular esports.
Hmm.
And I think that's because even if you take the loss, it's a net good. You know
Yeah,
for a fact that even if you take the
it's
loss,
going to
money's
like a
going to good.
positive impact. It's going to a charity that really needs
Yep.
it for the money, and they need it, and it's helping those charities who probably wouldn't get it from a regular esports
Yep.
play.
Even if you take the L, even if you take the L, you get
Yeah,
we're donating to, animals or homeless folks or displaced communities. It's a net good.
yeah. I know some people in the chat are saying. So one person said, "Do don't people go to the gym to help on their mental health and physical health after so much practice on video games?"
Yep, there's definitely a big correlative crossover between the competitive spirit that you'll see at the events and then folks that will go exercise, etc. Yeah,
Yeah,
very common.
I especially think they do have to go to the gym because to help them like, increase their boost of performance as well. Um,
Yeah,
especially just be because they're always on the chair all day. They would have to have some physical impact in that.
most definitely. I think there's a one-to-one relationship between performance and physical exercise for players. Even if they're sitting at their computer playing Pokemon, physical exercise has a significant impact on the way that they can organize their thoughts and kind of move between actions in an esports space.
Yeah. So I know you said because you wanted to talk to me about this, and I am. It's about mental health. Have you seen any communities out there or any other channels who have highlighted the mental health impacts? Like I know, for example, myself, I've seen. I am not sure if you're aware of this person called Dr. K, and he's a streamer. It's
I'm not aware.
A healthy gamer GG.
Oh, I've heard of that channel. Yes.
Yes, yes. So he like talks to people about their mental health and especially streamers and some esports players. Um, have you heard of any other communities out there who have like I guess talked about mental health in the esports industry in general, or even helped esports players go through hard times in life?
I think that it is an emerging area of research. There's definitely some key players. Healthy Gamer GG is one of the most popular ones.
Yeah.
I do not see much psychological reinforcement for esports players. In fact, I would say that um, it's desperately needed on the scene. More awareness. One kind of more sinister subtext of some of these esports tournaments is that people become obsessed with the intellectual property, right? So I'm well aware of the fact that there are players on the Pokemon esports scene who will never uh, objectively have a good placement, and they're constantly kind of chasing this dragon that they'll never be able to hit.
Hmm.
And that's not for lack of skill or whatever. It's just like, whatever XYZ circumstances lead to them maybe just having net worse performance than others at the game. And they can end up in a pit where it severely affects their self confidence. It affects their purpose in life. If you look at the people who are trying to chase esports on a regular, they're connected to Pokemon. They're like, this is the thing that I want to do. I want to be the Ash Ketchum.
Yeah.
Uh, and also, these communities are gamer communities, right? And
Yeah.
I'm going to just blanket say that sometimes you've got more awkward folks, more awkward personalities, maybe more reclusive personalities that try to get out of the house in these instances and compete, and these circuits can become objectively overwhelming for them. I think we need more psychological channels. To answer your question, no, there's not enough. I don't know of many, and there should be more.
Yeah. Have you yourself talked to anyone who's talked about mental health or even talked about your own mental health? Have you talked to any like coach or anything? when you're having a rough time, even when you've like had a bad performance?
Yes, I have. Yeah, internally there are architectures for that. So particularly when you think about community teams, like I mentioned that I kind of, I think my community would vouch for me on this. Kind of manage the Vegas community with one of my, with our dad, a guy named Joshua Diamond. He shows up on stream. He's actually one of the guys I sent to you when we were doing some paperwork before
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard you. I
Yeah,
think I
he's
think I
one.
saw that you've given me some information about other coaches out there who have talked about stuff.
Yeah. These guys will definitely uplift players. I've reached out to friends
Mhm.
individually and said, "Hey, dude, I am struggling right now. I am trying to get life done, but also I really want to compete at this event. I know I'm trying to show up for everybody. We're all working on these team things. Everybody's constantly trying to enable one another on the scene. So there's internal architecture for it, but external none."
Have you ever even seen? So I know when you first started up, have you? Because it must have been very stressful when you first started. I believe it's very.
Yeah.
Have you? Did you get any resources then when you felt very down and it was just your first game?
No, I think that's the alarming thing is you don't kind of realize how deep in the rabbit hole you can get in these competitive esports circuits
Hmm.
until there's been enough time for you to kind of come out of it, right? Maybe
Yeah.
the season ends and it's been 6 months and it's like you kind of look back at that time and it's like, oh my gosh, dude, I spent every day for 5 months locked into my computer playing Pokemon, like hyper fixated.
Yeah.
It's difficult to see it happening when it's happening to you, but from a third party or even when I look at some of my peers, it's like, wow, yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are.
Did you get any advice from anyone who also had gone through the same experiences as you, but when you were a beginner, did anyone come up to you and say, "Oh, look, this is what I can advise you, or I can help you out with, especially
Yeah.
through your mental health phase or through anything bad from bad performances or tough times?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that there, especially when I started, I met with a couple of really pro players. I think agency on the scene, or like, what would you call that? Legacy skill, legacy talent is something that you see on a lot of the scenes where new players like me, when I was at my first event, would go to more experienced players and be like, this is actually really overwhelming. Do you have advice on how to handle competition, handle loss, handle where do I go from here if I was really excited to go to an event and things didn't end up the way that it was or the way that I was hoping things would go. And yeah, you'll see players kind of lean on the senior players in the community for guidance,
Yeah,
including me.
yeah. So we're just gonna have a bit of a break, and then we'll ask a few more questions after. So I'm just gonna. Can you guys hear us? Can you hear us? Should be
Hello,
working.
hello.
Hello. I'm just waiting for them to chat. I'm just gonna check it
Yep,
myself. It should be
no
working. Yeah.
worries.
Yeah. So I think they haven't asked a lot of questions, but they have talked about, I guess, about like their own opinions. I think like one person did say that about content creators that can only do one game because it's only what they're known for. And I think what they
Hmm.
mean by that is like, especially if you've come out from the esports phase and then you go into content creation, sometimes people don't even know that that person is an esports player from the past, and they just know them as a a YouTuber or a streamer. I think one
Hmm.
example of it is like XQC, for example, who went into streaming and then went into YouTube. But not a lot of people knew he was actually an Overwatch pro. Have you any
Yep.
seen? Yeah, have you seen any of that? Who also people out there who are just in the Pokemon phase, just not known for their esports career?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of folks in the Pokemon esports space who will maybe. Well, it's weird. You've got a mix of folks who have a content vertical, but then they go to the events to kind of reinforce their content. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to this event and then I'm going to make content. And then you'll see the opposite happen where people start in Pokemon esports and then they'll move to content. And there's a vast distinction between those two kinds of content strategies. Usually the guys that go esports to content are more competitive focused, and the guys that go content to esports, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but
Yeah.
they'll sometimes become overwhelmed because they don't realize that the esport is sport, right? At the end of the day, it's still sport. So
Yeah,
they'll have
it's
a
still a
more of a
competitive.
casual attitude.
I think a lot of people, even people who don't know what esports is, they think, oh, what is it? Is it just gaming? But no, it's just like regular sports like basketball or football, where you actually have to use your mind and actually focus and be competitively engaged in the game with teammates.
Yeah, they take it so seriously. And what you do see though is you'll see, like for example, one of my close friends and a former regional champion. He might even be a multiple regional champion now. I don't know. Stefan Mott. Um, he came from a background of StarCraft 2. He's a former StarCraft 2 player, moved into the Pokemon space and started doing fantastic. But I'm not sure many people know that. I think most people know Stefan as just a Pokemon regional champion.
Mhm. Yeah. Is Stefan also, is he a content creator as well?
Yes, he is. Yep,
Ah,
he is a content creator. Content creator pipeline went from StarCraft to Pokemon, and then fed back into a loop where, yeah, he's now kind of a full time career guy. I believe he goes to every event. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So I think you also said about this. Do you believe the esports industry does enough to support players' mental well-being?
No, objectively, no. And this is evidenced by the kind of state of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think esports, a lot of times, I've talked about this a little bit in my own content, but esports is a marketing vertical for games. But what you'll see is a lot of these industry players, stakeholders, etc., kind of look at esports as just a money funnel. So when these players, for example, in Pokemon, like my peers, this is where I mentioned the sinister thing earlier, are deeply connected, borderline hyperfixated on the Pokemon esports circuit. They're spending a lot of time, attention, mental resources. They're talking about the game online. They're essentially becoming live advertisements for the game and for the competitive circuit, right? You'd think that there'd be some kind of, I don't know, enablement for them that exists behind the scenes. And I think in some regard, you should do, or maybe if I can just tell anybody in the chat or
Yeah.
you about this, but the Pokemon Professor program, I think, is supposed to be the proxy for that. That's the official. You can sign up online right now to become like a Pokemon VGC or TCG judge or organizer. And that comes with a rule book and a set of guidelines on how to support your player base locally as a community. I'm a Pokemon Professor certified. I have the judge certification. and the organizer certification, and they loosely go over how to handle certain scenarios between players, like player interactions, but there's not a ton of mental mental health resources for players, and it's disturbing in some way to see how obsessed players can get with these properties
Would you
and these
recommend
games, these
any
circuits.
like any things that would in the future would have an impact into new beginners of esports players or a new rising of the new generation? What resources would you like say that we should have in the esports industry?
Well, I think that, like, for example, what you're doing right now is a great way to explore, some of the quiet psychological impact that is happening behind the scenes
Yeah,
in esports. If I were to make a blanket suggestion to the esports community or players who are esports players, I would say just to do the best you can. I know that sounds a little bit of a hand wave, but I think sometimes people get caught up in expectations, right?
yeah.
Especially it's sports. You want to be the LeBron James, you want to be the Wolf Glick, you want to be
Yeah.
the insert pro player here.
Do you think
But
there should be like maybe like therapists or more licensed coaches on the scene, especially in the Pokemon esports?
100%, 100%. I think the question then just becomes, right, how do the players actually access these people?
Yeah,
Because is it going to cost money? That's something that we struggle with. I'm sure that I don't need to tell you that.
yeah,
A lot of gamers are, it's esports players particularly will sometimes struggle financially in in other regards, but they do put money into the esports architecture. So I think it's important for not only the esports scene to reinforce the importance of therapists and of mental health, but for the players to take a step back and go, I need to think about making sure my brain is healthy.
I know you yourself because you were saying about the financial side of it because it costs money. Have you
Hmm.
ever said like, because you said you've got another job, can you tell the viewers that you also don't just do esports full time, you also have a job in the meantime?
Yeah, yeah, and that's that's part of what leads to the burnout is folks will spend all their free time playing the esport and then go to their job 9 to 5, more esport.
Yeah,
It's a loop. Yeah, it's
yeah,
a loop.
yeah, yeah. Um, what's something about the mental side of being a pro gamer that people often misunderstand?
That's a great question. And the thing that I would say that people don't understand, maybe if say you're somebody who doesn't know about esports at all and you're going to a community like Pokemon and you see an event where all of these people are trying to do their thing,
Yeah,
the passion that's driving these players is beyond what most people could even conceptualize. And the reason I think that that's important isn't just because the passion drives their engagement with the circuit, but these people, our communities, esports communities, take on the identity of their game, right? It becomes something so deeply intertwined with their personality, with their sense of meaning, with their sense of purpose sometimes in life that it it should be more well known that it means a lot to these players. You'll see people hand wave the industry as it's just gaming. I think that came up once or twice during this call, right? It's just gaming. People are just
yeah,
playing games. Like, no, not to these players, not to them. It's so much more than that. It's just like somebody who plays baseball, holds baseball true to their heart, and wakes up in the morning and thinks baseball, they eat baseball, they talk baseball. It's the same thing in esports. These people are so highly, highly passionate and dedicated, and that's hard to see from the outside. They kind of get looped into it. They're just gamers, but they're not. They're athletes.
yeah. No, I totally agree because it's a real thing, and I don't think a lot of people know about it, especially people who don't know esports or even gaming. They
Yep.
they are very confused of what esports is. Um, do you think? like the industry should be mainly focusing on the mental health side of it and also focusing on making esports well known to more people, not just people who play video games.
Yes, I think accessibility is number one. And I think that esports itself offers an infinite range of psychological comforts for contributors. So not just players, but content people. There's judges, right? There are people who are judges who don't even want to play the game. They just want to be in the community and be in the space and be a part of something bigger. Um, Same goes for casters. There's a
Yeah,
whole industry of psychological needs that can be met. Uh, or I'm sorry, the industry supports a range of psychological needs to be met for players. If that, I think maybe that answered the
yeah,
question,
no,
right? I hope
it
so.
definitely makes it. Yeah, it makes sense because there's a lot of roles, and I guess the main focus is the esports players themselves. But there's a lot of things like you have a shoutcaster, you have a coach, you have your
Yep.
team leader. It's all a big process.
Yeah, yeah, and it caters to a lot of the uh, variances in people's own distinguished needs for satisfaction and uh, competition, so on and so forth.
Yeah. As a role model in the esports community, what message would you like to convey about the importance of maintaining overall health and well-being while gaming competitively? And this could be
It,
mainly to do with your mental health. So, what other advice would you give to mental health, other esports players out there about their mental health?
I would say that it's just so important. You know, the esports space is overwhelming. It's tumultuous. It's overstimulating. People are fighting for glory, and not only in the physical sense, but in the digital sense. You want digital notoriety. Uh, Folks want to be the champion, and it's so important for people to take care of their health in this space, to take care of their tertiary life, their existence in the space, and not get caught up in um, everything that esports takes, because it takes a lot. And anybody that doesn't know that it takes a lot needs to be acknowledged in that. Like, you guys are working hard. Everybody out there in esports, I know they're working hard. Again, you see these folks create content verticals. You see them building teams. You see them doing grassroots events in their Discord channels.
Do you think it's
I
a lot
can't.
hard, especially with people who, like, because you've got two jobs, and I'm gonna just
Mhm.
bring up this question again because someone in the
Yeah.
chat had said, because also with like sponsorship deals, it's if you don't get them, it's quite
Oh
hard,
my
isn't it?
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
had said. Because also with like sponsorship deals, it's if you don't get them, it's quite
Oh
hard,
my
isn't it?
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't even get into that. I'll tell you what, that's a whole other thing that
yeah,
it drives. That's part of what drives some of these players to exhaustion, right?
yeah.
Not only do you want to win the event, well, if you don't win the event, but you're a full-time Pokemon player and you're doing a content vertical, then yeah, you need some sponsorships. You better
And
hope G
especially
Fuel calls
especially if
you.
you're not making any money from the content you're doing, it's quite
Exactly.
hard because then you're having content creation, you're having a job on the side as well, and then you also want to what's in sponsorship deals, and sponsorship deals give you that money to stabilize your career for being an esports player.
They do. And being an individual chasing after sponsors is much more difficult than, say, me at the Corporate Esports Association. We just recently got sponsored by Amazon Luna Cloud Gaming. And it was an easy pitch to sell because we go, hey, we're an esports league for charity. Now, flip that on its head. And if you're an individual player, and maybe that frustration that you're feeling, not winning an event, is feeding into the loop of you're not getting sponsors either, it becomes
Yeah,
very mentally overwhelming for players.
yeah. I mean, I feel like the same thing could go for as well with streamers who will want esports players, and I think their deals and being on streaming platforms or even video platforms like YouTube or Twitch or Kick or TikTok, they also have that mental over well-being because they also want a good deal that's gonna help their career survive for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally agree.
So, I think I've asked this, but what I'm gonna say this because we kind of go back to this question again. What advice would you give to younger or aspiring esports players who are struggling mentally or emotionally?
I would tell them to definitely lean on their community. You know, maybe if you can't afford a therapist or you can't afford psychological help, or maybe you just don't have the resources or the time to go seek out formalized mental health, I think it's important to fully acknowledge the fact that what you're doing in esports is difficult. These players are cream of the crop. A lot of times folks will, especially new players, will go into an esports event like a Pokemon regional and expect that they're going to be fighting a specific caliber of player that maybe they made up in their head. And what ends up happening is they're actually playing, and I say this with love, like the sweatiest, the most difficult, the most strategic players in the entire planet on that game. And uh, being in that space, it's so important to lean on your own community and say, hey guys, you know, I need support, XYZ support. And
Especially if you're on a
if you
team
can,
that doesn't support you, it's quite hard as well
yeah,
because then you're stuck on that team and you also have to deal with them, so you can't actually leave it. So that will
oh my
be
God, yeah,
mentally draining to your mind because you're you have to these sponsorship deals like we go back to it's like there's also team deals. Being on an esports team, you have to give your best performance. So
yeah, the team deals angle is absurd. I think my understanding of that side of it too is that what you see is a lot of these players kind of begin to ask for more from their teams if they're not being supported in the way that they need to be. They will go, well, hey, I need more money then. Like I need some way to support my endeavors in this esport. And what that will lead to is a little bit of overspend. I know that sounds crazy to say, but it'll lead to overspending within the franchise teams, and then it'll disrupt the team, right? And now suddenly it's like there's a higher bar. Oh well, we gave you that mental support. Oh well, we boosted your pay.
but
Oh
then you
well, we
also
got
have to
these
pay
sponsor
them
deals.
back because they're
Yeah,
funding your esports career. They are taking you to, I guess,
exactly.
the tournament. They're taking you, they're feeding you, they're you know buying you whatever you need, I guess, housing and
Yep.
stuff. But then all that money that you've now won, it goes back to them and it goes back to the business because you owe them the money that they used on you.
Yeah. And you better deliver, quote unquote, right? It's like,
Yeah,
okay, time to better knock it out then. And then if you don't win, it's like, oh my goodness. So crazy. That environment.
that would take like a very big mental toll, especially on a person who's not winning competitions, because then their team is also just paying so much money to put them out there.
Yeah, I can't. It's very difficult circumstances, and I have familiarity with some players who have historically been involved in that, and it is devastating to their mental health if things start to go awry.
Hmm. What changes would you like to see in the future when it comes to mental health in esports? And lastly, how do you personally take care of your well-being outside of gaming? I know you said you took breaks, but do you do any other hobbies outside of playing Pokemon or just gaming in general? Do you, I don't know, do you have pets or anything that helps?
Yeah, I'll answer both questions. What changes would I like to see in the future when it comes to mental health and esports? Awareness, just
Yeah.
awareness, and maybe I think this is an industry wide problem, but respect to the craft. Right now, esports in general isn't considered really a formalized career path for the players and for all of those individual contributors that I outlined, like and you did as well, like shoutcasters,
Yeah.
etc. Um, the career vertical within esports needs to be taken more seriously because again these highly passionate players who actually do create revenue streams with uh, streaming services and so on and so forth uh, are not being given the support that they need from the world, aggregate the world, to support them in esports. So I think mental health in esports needs to be brought to attention. And I can't speak enough to how deeply invested and attached players get to their IP. We all know somebody who's been playing League of Legends for like 100 years. Like that guy
Yeah.
needs support. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and then how do I take care of myself, my well-being outside of gaming? A lot of personal projects, a lot of music, and definitely a lot of exercise. When you mentioned the exercise angle earlier in the call, I thought it was a great call out because those nerves, that jitteriness that you can get at a
Yeah.
competition can be suppressed drastically through exercise.
Yeah, I feel like it does take a lot to yourself because especially if you don't enjoy exercising or don't do the physical. And I'm not saying you do have to do the physical side, but it does boost your performance and it does help. But also, if someone, like you said, is just focusing on being the best at Pokemon or any other game, it does take a toll on them, and they don't see it, but it's the burnout. And then eventually, when they get to that game, they're not giving their best because they're on that game so much to the point where it's just not helping them anymore.
Yep. Yep. Nailed it. 100%.
Yeah. So yeah. I have. Has your mood ever affected you when, I guess, you're in a really I guess, bad moment in a performance game? Has your mood ever dropped down, and have you had an argument with a team member because you're just not feeling it?
Yeah, I'll be frank with you, right? I've had disagreements with teammates and with competitors, people
Yeah,
across from the table. One thing you'll see a lot of times is those frustration loops will build up. Say maybe you have a bad game one, a bad game two, because remember this is Swiss, particularly in Pokemon, where everybody plays 8 rounds,
yeah,
and suddenly round three, where people who aren't doing good emotional management, and me, I've even had this happen to myself before, suddenly you're looking for little things, you're looking at micro interactions between players. Maybe somebody's Nintendo Switch isn't charged, and it's like you have to call the judge over, and it suddenly becomes this thing that totally throws off your mental health or your mood, and then that can affect your performance. I
yeah,
had a friend who, when you play in these games, the Pokemon team gives you a team sheet. So I mentioned that it's open team sheet. So if I give you my team sheet, it says all my Pokemon's moves and all of my builds, right? And you guys swap these in between rounds. This is provided by the Pokemon Company International at events. If you look that up, it's called a team sheet.
a team sheet.
And
Yeah,
I had a friend who, this will answer this question perfectly. When he received his team sheet at the beginning of the day, he traveled to Portland. He went to this event, just paid the money to come compete. He's super passionate, ready to go. He got his team sheet, and there was an error where, for some reason, his stuff didn't get printed. Right, it printed incorrectly.
yeah,
So when round one happened, instead of competing and playing with everybody else, he's dealing with a paperwork issue at a judge panel, and they're like, "Oh, well, what happened?" Blah blah blah. He has to get a new team sheet. He misses round one, and kind of shows up to it late. And what happened was that just threw off his entire run. His entire run was thrown off because of the disruption in his mood. He came in with focus, but that tiny little error was like so disruptive to what his expectations were for the event. He didn't expect to be the only guy with a team sheet problem, but
yeah,
what that led to was a negative outlook on the tournament for the rest of the day.
yeah. Because then now his team is also waiting for him to get back
Yep.
there. It would take a very big toll on him because that's a lot, especially you're like, you think you've got everything there, you think you're ready, and then something happens, so then it's, oh no, then you have to go all the way
Yeah,
back
and
or
it's just
something.
luck.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not even his fault. It's just like, oh yeah, this is messed up. This isn't
that's
gonna
it.
work. Like
Yeah, yeah.
throwing off his whole day. Yeah,
Uh, I want to ask you about what's your typical day looks like when you're preparing for a tournament or during a training phase, or even in general, even with your day-to-day job, if if you've got like a tournament, let's say next week, what would your day-to-day look like to prepare
it's a
for
great
that tournament?
question. Yeah, it's a great question. Portland regionals are coming up this weekend, and our
Yeah,
Vegas team is working really, really hard in the Discord every day right now.
yeah,
There's uh, constant matchup advice, so people are posting live replays of their gameplay and corroborating with the team. There are not mental health resources, but architecture internally that we've set up in our channels and our groups to enable kind of feedback from tournament play, so you can play more grassroots tournaments, and then post them in these groups, these discords, these communities that we have. And that's what I would be doing if I'm not actually going to Portland regionals. I'm just supporting my team.
Yeah.
And what it's been every day is supporting them, talking through their team making decisions, talking through their head spaces, trying to get them locked in. A lot of people right before an event start worrying, like, I don't think I actually have this. I don't think I got it. And it's like, I have to go in and say, no, dude.
No, yeah, believe in yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
like, no,
yeah,
no,
you
lock,
got
you
this.
got it, man. Like,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yep.
Because also then, if someone's telling you they're in a really bad position, and then they come to you to tell you about it, or even someone in the team, like another coach or something, it probably takes some toll on them because they also have to hold everything that that person's saying to them, especially if it's like got to do with they're feeling really, really bad to the point of the lowest level of their life, especially if someone's, I guess, passed away or, they've just had something negative happening in their life. It would take a toll on you because they've just told you, and then you also have to have your spirit up there for everyone else.
Yep. Yep. That is at you nailed it on that again.
Yeah.
It's just like that. And I actually part of the reason some context of that I even got involved in Pokemon competitively was I actually lost my father, and when I went into this community, it was like, wow, hey, this is a place where not only can I focus on something and be highly competitive, but these people are supporting me and helping me through this time. And
Yeah.
that's something that happens, I think, kind of semi-frequently. We've seen a lot. We've seen several cycles of loss or life disruption in our VGC community, and yeah, enabling each other and leaning on each other, especially before an event, is so, so, so important.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you lots again. I mean, this has been a very good talk. I feel like we've covered a lot of questions that especially involve in the mental health side of it and even your career in general. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this has
no,
been
no,
amazing. Yeah.
I'm glad you've enjoyed this. I don't know, would you like to leave any of your socials or even promote your charity organization?
Yeah, I guess I'd just say check out the Corporate Esports Association if you guys want to see Amazon and Facebook compete. It's kind of cool to just kind of see how that space looks like. Corporate esports as a team building exercise is something that you see emerging. I'm one of those contributors, kind of trying to bridge the gap between casual and competitive, and just bring. My biggest criticism of the product model is who in the world wants to play video games with their coworkers, right? But when you add in the charity angle, it becomes more of a feel good
Yeah,
mental
because
health
they're
type.
giving a positive impact, and especially if they know
Yeah,
they're helping a good cause, it does
exactly.
it does make their day, and it makes everyone else's day for that. I'm just gonna answer some questions for the chat. So, Faded Fusion asks, uh, does competing make you want to move away from gaming?
Faded Fusion, that's a great question. And I would say the answer to that is yes. Actually, it's completely made me want to move away from gaming and move into the architecture side of it. So I'm so senior as an esports player. Like I said, I've been playing since 2019 in the official esports Pokemon. But then before that, I was like a top 500 player in Overwatch, and I used to play on a little team there. And before that, it was Major League Gaming, so on and so forth. I've now hit the point in my esports career where I go, okay, I don't want to game competitively anymore because it's mentally exhausting. The athlete part of it is exhausting. And I want to shift to the architecture, management, tournament organizer. I mentioned that I'm now a certified Pokemon professor, Judge Basic. That's the shift. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to compete anymore, I need to support this community because it's important and it means so much to these esports athletes.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, because you've been in that phase of being an esports player now to being someone more senior and trying to manage the teams and even just the organization, it also takes a toll on you because you're the person who's basically managing everything and giving advice to the people who are on the team.
Yeah, exactly.
We have one more question from
Sure.
Doovie78. I'm gonna change it a bit just because I can't say this, but
Okay.
uh, they say, "Am I sorry if this is weird, but do you ever feel like smashing your computer because it's just been too much?"
Who hasn't? You know what I mean? Yes, the answer is yes. I think that's very common, and that's exactly why we need mental health support in esports.
Yeah, I do think there should be more stuff out there, especially I think Reddit forums. I know we met through Reddit, but definitely more Reddit stuff or even Discord communities that just focus on esports players' mental well-being. Because I don't think there's a lot of people out there, even like streamers or YouTubers. Um, there's not many people out there who talk about stuff. Even esports players in general, I don't see them talking about their experiences online to, tell their viewers or um, talk about their own just mental challenges through life.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful idea. And I would also say that the reason you don't see players talk like that all the time is because, again, it's not a formalized career path. Some people still feel guilty about even being excited about being an esports player because they're so used to the communities just suppressing them and basically being like, well, that's just playing video games. They don't understand. That's where that you asked me the question of what do I wish people knew. These
Yeah,
people are so passionate. They work so hard to be the peak of the game. There's billions of Pokemon players. The fact that these guys can go to an event and actually say, "Hey, I'm one of the best," it takes a lot of talent. And what you said regarding communities for mental health in esports, I think it's a great idea. Even an aggregate community Discord of, hey, we're here, we're all competitive players, and we're here to support one another regardless of the game, could be a really fun experiment to just kind of see what correlative crossovers, layovers are there between psychological experiences of players in, say, Valorant versus Counter Strike
do you
or
also think that
Pokemon versus chess.
the people who organize, so I know the game companies and also the esports companies, because I do think also the gaming companies, they are organizing these events, like some of them. So let's say we've got Valorant, where's VCT, right? And
Yep.
they organize their championships and their tournaments. Do you think they should be investing money into getting people, especially therapists and stuff, to help with esports players' mental well-being? I know there's been a few times where you've had incidences of people just let me describe the word as they pass away because it's been a lot for them to
Yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
mentally.
That's
And do you think it's more of the companies who are taking these esports players, or do you think also the video game companies also? So I think a bit of both esports and what would you more say? Do you think it is mainly to do with the video game companies or the esports companies?
Yeah, it's so cross functional. I'd say, and I know this probably isn't the answer maybe you're looking for, but I'd say it's both. It really
Yeah,
is both.
yeah,
Yeah, both of them need to contribute more effectively to supporting player architecture. It's sad when I see games just kind of look over and we see it all the time, right? I
yeah,
think Smash is one of those famous ones where it's like Nintendo, from what I understand, explicitly does not support the Smash Bros scene behind the scenes, and it's like, why?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's very important because there's been also a lot of Smash esports players who have now passed away. And it's due to sometimes I would say, do you think it's like an online negativity online who kind of takes the mental toll on them because they get comments from people who are just saying to them, "Oh, you suck, you're bad, you shouldn't be on the team." Like, and then they say more things, and then they do lots more things that just really affects them.
Yeah, yeah, well, absolutely. And you see the same thing in Pokemon. There have been a couple of instances where there were beautiful, beautiful minds, beautiful players who, yeah, couldn't, ended up in overwhelming circumstances. And the community offers a lot of support when that kind of thing happens. But you can't help but wish there was more for people when that stuff is happening, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you for today. I think we've gone through all the questions and I've gone through all the answers. You've given amazing things. I genuinely hope your career goes amazing and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. My little last plug here
Yeah,
is that I'm an American. and I'm actually going to be traveling to the University of Chichester in the UK here
Yeah.
in, I believe, September to chase actually a formalized education in esports player psychology. So this totally lines up.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. I'm doing a esports course in my college, so I guess that adds up to what I'm doing with the project. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
genuinely hope everything goes well for you, and thank you for being here today.
No problem. Yeah, just curious. I'm sure maybe your viewers already know this, but I don't know this. Um, do you have like a career trajectory within gaming? That's the idea here.
Um, At the minute, I'm not sure. I think this
Hmm,
was more of my project, and I leaned into
sure.
the mental health of it. I mean, I could have done content creation or totally so many other things. I mean, playing games myself and recording it. I think some people, even in the chat, who are in my class, have done different things. But I wanted to talk about the mental health side of it and lean into that and lean into more topics that haven't been talked about in the industry. And
You'd
I
be a
think
good advocate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I did something similar to this last year where I talked to some people. So we've also got an esports team in our class, our part of our course, and I talked to
Yep.
them about their mental health. So um, they've only played I guess against other colleges. So it's very nice to talk to someone who's also experienced going against other tournaments in other places in other towns and cities.
Mhm. Yeah, right on. If anybody ever needs any support for, access to competitive circuits or just needs insight into esports architecture, I'm your guy. Hit me up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think my chat also said thank you so much too. So yeah,
Yeah, lovely. Just lovely. Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. So thank you guys for watching. Um, we'll be here next time, and you can look at my YouTube channel to see more information about the video. I'm gonna upload it.